Okay. Hi everyone. So welcome to another session. In this session, we will just do the CRUD operations uh, by using the ASP.NET Core Web APIs, Entity Framework Core, and then MS SQL database. Okay. So you can see in the book controller, we have directly added the hard-coded information, which is not the real-time way of handling the data. In real-time scenario, we will have to get the database into the database and store the data into the database. So in the last session, we already configured our database. We have created the tables and everything. Now in this session, we will do the CRUD operation. So basically, this API, GET API, this API should go to the database and then find all the books from the books table and return it back to the UI. So that is the uh, main use of this API. Okay. So what I will do, I will directly write the business logic here, and later we will move that business logic into the repository pattern. Why we require the repository pattern, we will also discuss that, but let's go step by step. First step is I wanted to connect with the database. So in order to connect or communicate with the database, you will require an object of your DbContext class. Okay. So by using the dependency injection, we can get that object. What is dependency injection? Dependency injection will help you to keep your two classes loosely coupled from each other. What do I mean by loosely coupled is, let's say you are having class A and class B. And if you create your class A object inside the class B, then your class A and class B will be tightly coupled with each other. You cannot run the class A without class B. You cannot run the class B without the reference of class A. So that is tightly coupled. Loosely coupled means you can inject the object of whatever class you want into your current class inside the constructor. Okay. So how I will get an object? Private read only library DbContext. Okay. This is the object I have just created. Now I wanted to assign the actual value to this object. So by using the constructor injection, we can do that like this: library DbContext, and here we can assign that object which we got inside the constructor to the member variable of this class. And here we can just assign it like this: DbContext equal to DbContext. That's it. Okay. So we have assigned the object which we got from the dependency injection to the object of this member variable of this class. Now the question is how you will get an object of this DbContext class inside the constructor of this class. How you will get that? You will get it because of this registration. In the program.cs file, we have registered the dependency of that class. That's why in any class, any controller, any service class, any repository class, if you want an object of this class, you don't have to use new keyword. As you know, in C#, how we used to create the object like this: DbContext obj is equal to new DbContext, like this. Okay, so this is how we can create the object. But if I create the object like this inside my controller, then my controller will tightly couple with that DbContext class. I cannot run my controller without having the DbContext dependency. So that's why I have just registered the dependency of that object inside the program.cs file. And just because of these two lines, I am able to get that object inside the constructor, and I have whatever object I got in the constructor, I just assign that to the member variable of this class like this. Okay. Now by using the DbContext class, I can communicate with the database. How to communicate? Like this: I want all the books where books is equal to. Now I'm writing the lambda expression. What is lambda expression? Lambda expression is the programmatical way to communicate with the database. Okay, to do the DML operations with the database. Okay, programmatically I want to do the DML operation. Like tell me one thing. If I want to fetch all the record from that books table, what query I will write in the SQL? I will write like this: select star from books, right? So this will basically get me all the list of books from the books table. Now, in a programmatical way, I will write like this: DbContext object dot tbl books dot toList. That's it. I want all the records from the books table. So DbContext is a database class having the tbl book books reference. You can see this one. And from this tbl book, I wanted to fetch all the records. That's why I make here toList. It will give you the list of all books. If you hover your mouse here, you can see the return type is list of books, which can be a nullable. So it will fetch the record from the book table. It will map all the columns to the respective properties from your book entity, and then you can return that book entity as a response, and your response should be IEnumerable of books. That's it. So we have done the read operation with the database. We don't have to write any single query of the SQL server just because of the lambda expression. This is the lambda expression. Okay. Now let's keep the mouse here. Sorry, debugger here. Run your project. Okay. So this is the Swagger UI. Here you can see all the APIs. We have made the changes to the getBook API, right? This API. Now I wanted to debug this API. Why we need the debugger? Because we can run your API line by line. We can run the code line by line and see what is happening internally. So that's why we need to debug it. So click on the try now, click on the execute. If you click on this, it will just break the point here because of this red breakpoint. Okay. And you can just see the line by line, like function F10, F10. Okay. You can see there is no books because in the book list there is a zero count. Why? Because in your database there is no books available. We have just created the database and that books table does not have any record. So that's why we are returning the empty array. You can see result is empty array. But if I go to the database now, okay, and I right click on the books table, first of all, let me add something into the author table. Okay, because without author, we cannot create the book because we are having the foreign key one to many relationship there. So I right click on the authors table. It is taking some time. So we have just opened the author table. I'm just adding some authors here. Like I wanted to add some real-time authors. So let's add, it's a just a member, author one. Okay. Okay, it is taking too long time. Okay. Okay, so we have added one author here. Then we will add one more book. Right click, edit 200 rows. We can also open the database from the Visual Studio. If you go here, view server explorer. Okay. In this, just expand this one. Data connections, refresh. Refresh. Okay, there is no tables. Okay, so let's add the book. So I wanted to add book one, having price, let's say 100 rupees, author ID is one. Okay. Now there is one record in the database. If you rerun your API, this API, if you execute it again by clicking on the execute button, so there is no record as of now. Let's wait for this operation to be completed. Yeah. Now if you run this execute button again, you can see there is one record. This API has written ID is equal to 1, book is equal to 1, price equal to 100, author ID is 1, and author name is null. Okay. So this is how we can just do the select query with the database in a form of object oriented program. Okay. By using the lambda expression. So this is for get the records, all the records from the database. Now we will do the save query actually, because if you do the save query, then we don't have to manually add the entries to the database like this. We will add through API, we will read through API. Let's do the save operation. Now for save, uh, what we are expecting from the UI? We are expecting UI will send me ID, name, price, and author ID. Okay, and this API will actually save that entity into the database. So here, how you can do that? Just use DbContext dot table dot add. Okay, so this function will help you to write insert into query. If you don't know how to save using the SQL query, insert into tbl books. Here we can add the column names, values. Here we can add the values. Okay, this is the query in order to add the records into the table books. If you don't know this query, perfectly fine. You can just use this syntax and it will help you to write the insert into query and insert the record into database. Here, what we done, we are just using DbContext object tbl books dot add book, and then once you add it, you have to run this command as well, DbContext dot save changes, and that's it. So what it will return? It will return the number of records got changed into the database as an integer. Okay, you can see return type is here. If you keep the cursor, return type is integer for this method. Now just run this API, keep the debugger. Okay, so if we see, we have two APIs now. One is for get, one is for save. If I go to the save, first of all, let's do the get call. Okay, if I go to the get, try it out, click on the execute button, you can see there is only one record available. Where is that? Here. Only one record available in the database. I wanted to create one more record. How to create? Go down. There is a save API. Click on the try it out. Add here. ID should be 0 because ID is auto incremental. I wanted to create one more book, that is book 1, sorry, book 2. Price of this book is 150 rupees. Author ID is 1 only, and there is no author information I have, so I will just pass it as a null. Okay. If you don't pass anything, that is also fine. If you pass null, that is also fine. So I wanted to pass book name, price, and author ID, and it should automatically create the ID into the database. That will be auto incremental, so obviously it will be 2. I click on the execute button. You can see this API got hit, and if you check the DTO object, this is your DTO object. DTO object means data transfer object. So it transfers the data from your UI to your C# application, and from this application you can transfer this data into multiple classes. So that's why we will call it as a data transfer object, DTO object. If you open this book, here you can see author ID is mapped with the author ID. There is no ID, author is null. Name property perfectly mapped with the name value, and then price is also mapped with price value. Now, by using the entity framework, if you do add and if you do save, it will create a new entry in your database. How to validate that? In order to check whether it got succeeded or not, you will definitely, first of all, you will get the success message. You can see book name book 2 created successfully, and here previously we run this API, it only returns one record. Now if you run that API again, it will return 2 records. You can see book 1, book 2. It means book 1 and 2 got inserted into the database. You can also go to your database, okay, and rerun this query like this. Select star from TBL book, right? What your name? Yeah, this one, books. Just run this query, you will see how many records available in the database, book 1 and 2. So this is how we can insert the record into the database by using the entity framework. Now, okay, give me a minute. Okay, I just noticed that my Swagger UI screen was not visible. So that's why I will reiterate everything quickly. So I was saying we have created 2 APIs. You can see there is one API for create a new book entry into the database, and there is one API for retrieving all the records from the database. Okay, these 2 API we are currently focusing on. So if you run these 2 APIs, you can see here in the Swagger, if I click on the execute button, there are 2 records available, right? Book 1, book 2. Now I wanted to add one more record. So if you want to add one more record, you can make use of this save book record, save book API. So I wanted to add book 3. So what I will do, I will just try it out this API in the Swagger, remove this book 3, and price, let's say 130 rupees, and author ID is 1. If we click on the execute button, then it will hit the save API, and in the save API you can see in the book DTO object there are these properties are mapped properly with their values. And if you go next, save changes, then it will actually create a new entry into the database that you can verify 2 ways. One is directly go to the database, fire this query, select star from books, click on the execute button, you can see there is third record got inserted. Okay, same thing I wanted to confirm by using the get API. So I will go to the Swagger UI and I will run this API, execute. If you execute this API, then you can see book 1, book 2, and book 3 is now visible. So this is how we can basically create the save API and get API. So we are learning CRUD operation. We got create, we got read. Now I wanted to do the update operation. Okay. So for update, You know the full form of CRUD, right? CRUD, CURD.
Yes.
So in some companies you will heard CURD. Okay, basically both are same, CRUD and CURD. So C for create, update, read, and delete. Okay, so we just saw create and read. Now we will see update. So what happened is by mistakenly I have basically added the 130 price for this book, but its original price is 140, and by mistakenly I have added 130. So for that we will have update API. So just copy this API, save API, paste it here, just make it HTTP put. Put is for update. Okay, and here you can just mark it as a update book, pass the book information. This time we are expecting ID. If book dot id is equal to null, then throw the exception. What exception I want to throw? I wanted to throw the exception that please provide book id. Got it? Obviously if you want to update something, you will have to provide the reference what you want to update. So that's the reason I require the id. If it is there, id is not 0. Okay, not id is an integer, so it can be it cannot be null, it can be 0 by default. Okay, so if id is not 0, it means they have provided the id. And first of all we need to get the record from the database, where book dbcontext dot database name, which table you want to connect. I want to connect with books table. Dot find a function is there. Find function will help you the get the data from the database by using their id. Okay, so I got book from the database. I will call it as a db book. Okay, this book is from the ui has provided me the information into this object, and in the database I got the old information. So new information is here, old information is here. So what I will need to do, I will just rename this APIs so you will get more understanding. New book info. Okay, and I will rename this as well, old book info. Now obviously we wanted to update the data which we got from the UI to the database. How we can update it? First of all, get the old information and just mark it old information dot book name. What are all columns you want to update, you can just map them one by one. Name is equal to new information dot name, like this. Okay, I wanted to update name, then price, right? So old information dot price is equal to new information dot price. I want to update old information dot author id is equal to new information dot author id. Okay, once you're done with your property mapping, just do the save changes, and that's it. Now see why it is throwing the warning book info may be null here. So it can be null. If this id is wrong, then it will return the null, and if it is not null, then only do this operation. If old book information is not null, then do these 5 lines. That's it. Okay, updated successfully. So this is how we can do the update operations in your database. Now let me run this program. Close it, run it. Okay, you can see there is one more API has been added to your list. We have, let me do one thing. let me comment one API. So whatever API we learned so far, we will only see those to avoid the confusion. Okay, closed, open. Okay, great. So far we learned three APIs. This API will help you to get the list of books. This API will help you to save the book into the database. This API will help you to update the book information. Now, let's open the first API. See what are all books available into your database. Try it, execute. Okay, you are not seeing the Swagger. Okay, so in your Swagger, if you see, there are three APIs available. This API is for get the records. This API is for save the records. This API is for update the record, book record. So I wanted to get all the records first. I will go here, click on the execute. You can see there are three books. Out of them, the third record I wanted to update. I will just copy that record, go to the update API. Inside the update API, click on the execute or try now button. Here, whatever record we copied from there, paste it here. I wanted to update the price to 145. Okay, so ID is 3, name is same, price I have changed, author ID is same, and I will click on the execute button. Now you got the API response, that is book name book 3 updated successfully. What we change? We have changed the price to 140. Now go to the database. Okay, you can see the price was 130. I have clicked on the execute button. Now it is 145. It means we have updated the same record only. We haven't created new record. We haven't deleted the existing record because ID is also 3. Okay, same thing should be reflected into the API response. Okay, so if I run the get API again, it should return the updated values. So if I go to the Swagger UI and go to the get API, click on try it out, execute, you can see whatever data it is returning, that is updated one, 145. Got it? This is how we can create the update API. Now the last API we will learn, that is delete operation. So far from the CRUD functionality, we learn create, update and delete. Okay. See what? From the CRUD functionality, we learn create, update and read. Now we will learn about the delete. So let's create one more API. Stop here, go down, copy this whole endpoint, create another endpoint, that is delete book. Okay, and it should be HTTP delete. Now you can just copy the same name to your method from HTTP delete. Sorry, from book. This is, I just want ID actually. ID I want from the parameter, not in the request body. So I want the ID like this. So I will do book delete book slash ID, book ID, and that ID should be mapped with this ID parameter. And if that ID is 0, it means please provide the book ID. If it is not 0, then find that ID record into the database using the find function. Okay, this function will help you to get the record from the database. I will rename it as a DB book, the book which is available inside the database. If it is not null, then we wanted to delete that. How to delete using the lambda expression? By using the SQL server, how to delete that? Delete from TBL books where ID is equal to ID parameter. This is the query, but I don't know. I don't know how to write the query. By using the native framework, I know. So how we can do that? DbContext books dot remove. Remove function will help you to write the delete query. That's it. Okay. Whatever book you got from the database, provide to that remove function. It will remove the record, save changes, and here you can just whatever book you are having. We do not have the book name, right? Book deleted successfully. That's it. And once we delete, it will not be visible in the get API. Now you can run this API, see the output. It should work. Okay, so book, save book, update book. This is the Swagger UI. You can see the additional endpoint has been added for deleting the book. I wanted to delete a book which is having ID is equal to 3. If I run this query, there are these many books available into our database. How many books? 3 books. I wanted to delete the third book which is having ID 3. If by mistakenly I provide ID as a, let's say, 0, try it out, 0, and click on the execute button. What we are doing? We are throwing the exception. Please provide book ID. You will get the exception. You can see the exception here. Please provide book ID. Okay. But if I provide the valid book ID, right? I wanted to delete the book which are having ID is equal to 3. It will just delete the book and you will get book deleted successfully response. And now if you go to the database, you can see previously there was 3 records, and if you see now there are only 2 records. It means that record got deleted from the database. And also in your getbook API response, you will now see only 2 records written by the database, not 3 records, right? There is no record with ID 3. So this is how you can just create the delete operation or delete API for your entity. Okay, so I think we have covered all the APIs: create, update, read, and delete. And yeah, there is one additional API we can create quickly. That is, if you want to get the book details by using their ID, so what you can do, you can use one more endpoint, get book info, having ID parameter, and same like delete API, we can write the definition like this. If ID is 0, then return the error. If ID is non-zero, then find the record and return the record like this. How to find? By using the find function and return this book as is, return book. That's it. And return type should be your book. I wanted to return the book information, and it can be null, so that's why question mark for the exclamation mark. Just run it. Yes. So this is the Swagger UI. Okay. There is one more endpoint we have added here. I want to get the book which are having ID is equal to 1. Okay. So I will just provide ID 1, execute. You can see it has written, it will return the record which are having ID is equal to 1. You can see the result here. Okay. I want the record which are having ID 2, execute. You can see it will return the record which are having ID 2. Why we require this? Because whenever, let's say there is a list, right? There is one grid. Grid is having 10 record. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 5, 6. Now I wanted to see the details about the second record. So there will be a details button in the second row. If you click on the details button, so you will make this API call. You will provide the ID here, and that by using that ID, we will find the record with the detailed information, and we will just return that list, that information as a part of response, and there will be only single entity. Okay, in this API, as we haven't passed any ID here. If you execute this, it will return all the records. You can see 1 and 2, but I only want the information about second record. So you can make use of another API. You can pass the 2 as a parameter. You will only get the second record, not all the records. So that is why we created this API. I think we have covered all the things for the database communication and CRUD functionality with your database, DDL as well as DML. Okay, DDL means how to create database, how to create tables, how to map the foreign key and primary key reference relationship between two entities that we learned in the last session. And in this session, we cover the DML commands like how to create the record, how to get the record, how to update the record, how to delete the record, how to create details record, how to create API to get the details about the current entity. So we will stop here and we'll see you in the next session. Okay, thank you.